Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of StarSound Speaks. This is your host, Irlianna Samsara of StarSound Astrology, episode 130. Woo! Okay, the new moon. This is what we're going to chat about today, and just some thoughts. I haven't done any real research this time around, still recuperating from the webinar, which is all about eclipse season. If you're interested, you can always just contact me below. I'll help connect you with that. But just to start off, a couple of funny stories, right? Maybe it'll be a tradition. Remember the surge protector from the previous episode? I had that surge protector that got hit with a, what is it, in your house, the brownout, or, when your lights blink on and off and everything resets. Well, it set off my surge protector and it was just going. Usually it's like 5 minutes, it'll beep, and then it's, 5 minutes worth of battery backup. This thing went on for days. I had to take it outside and I put it outside the house. And it was like, I think it was just Mercury's last laugh, as it was leaving the shadow retrograde period. And the day it was still going, and then the day after the shadow ended, that was the end. It finally died. It went on for like 3 days. It was so crazy. I was gonna walk into Office Depot with this thing beeping. What, did you ever see anything like this before? It was so crazy. So surge protector gone, heading for the dump. And the other thing I wanted to say was funny is I'm shopping for a car, and I'm looking, of course, I've looked at I swear 1,000 cars, photos online. And on one of them, I'm looking at the VIN number, which is on the plate that's on the inside of the door. And what I noticed in one of them, they had photographs and somebody photographed this VIN plate, and it had the day and the date and the year of the manufacturer. Usually it would just be like October of whatever year, but this had the full day. So of course, what do you think I did? Take a wild guess. Working too hard, went over, whipped out my chart, software, and voila. I'm like, no, I'm not going to buy this car. Mercury is, the day this was made, Mercury was not retrograde, but it was combust the sun, under the beams of the sun, and in its sign which is not in its favor, in Sagittarius. That is not a powerful place for Mercury. Double whammo. Nah, no thank you. So can you imagine the conversation if they asked me at the showroom, well, Miss Samsara, why don't you want to buy this car? Well, you see, sir, Mercury is in and you think they've heard everything. No, they haven't heard an astrological excuse. Anyway, so on we go. So this new moon is sun and moon in Mars. So Mars is the host. Last month it was Venus. Now it's Mars. Mars ruling Scorpio. The most powerful, potent signature of this eclipse, of this month, is the new moon is in exact opposition with Uranus, which is the change maker, the one who brings revolution, chaos, sudden and shocking change, but also enlightening and liberating, right? We have to see all sides of this diamond. And of course, this month this is the last new moon before our eclipse season. So our eclipse season starts with the November 19th lunar eclipse in Taurus, conjunct Algol, and a very, very intense fixed star. And then we have the solar eclipse next month. But I want to loop back to the theme around intense and sudden change and getting out of our comfort zone and really going deep. Scorpio is always demanding no surface talk here, right? Everything is just deep and cathartic and profound and intense and transformative through crisis often. Not comfortable, right? Well, the fact that Venus is ruling in the opposition with Uranus, right? So Venus, because Uranus is in Taurus and Venus is the ruler of Taurus. So it has a real flavor. It's really pushing us to invent radical new agreements around love and peace and harmony, radical new ways to eat, to connect with each other, to nourish ourselves, to nourish the earth. I think of that book and the movie Eat, Pray, Love, this is definitely a wake-up call to our comfort zone and our habits where we have been really unconscious or just not conscious enough. I just noticed in the other day in the news, it says, well, not actually it was today. Here's our welcome to the new moon in Scorpio opposing Uranus. I said this in the last episode. We'll look to see around breakthroughs with vegan themes and such. Well, here we are. Helsinki, the capital city of Finland, declared that it will no longer serve meat dishes at seminars, staff meetings, receptions, and other events to reduce the carbon footprint of the city. So talk about conscious planning around food and a whole new way of looking at food. So the city government plans to offer instead vegetarian food and fish. So it won't be just vegan, but it's sustainable. So the fish is sustainable local fish. So I just thought that was pretty amazing that this was this during the COP26 conference? Let me see. I'm going to check this out. Yeah, it's the communications director told the Associated Press that the changes take effect in January, and it will. It's run by the city has about 650,000 residents, so that's something else there. Anyway. And then also coffee, tea, oat milk, and items like bananas offered at events. I love the way they just slip oat milk in there. It's like, I love you, Finland. It's so cool. Like not almond milk, that's old hot. No, it's oat milk. But all that has to be sourced from fair trade producers. And they won't allow snacks and refreshments served in single-use containers. So again, it's about reducing the climate impact of food and reducing the amount of natural resources used by the city. So yay, Finland. This is groundbreaking. And this will become the norm as we move forward. We were no longer can we afford, as we have seen so much, especially this year with these earth changes and forest fires and climate change and such, we can't afford to be unconscious anymore. So that's one example of this new moon arrival with the confront with Uranus. It's that the opposition is always around how do we integrate this? How do we invent and how do we meet our fears with innovation? How do we move and transform ourselves in innovative ways, especially around the food supply, around our values and the things that are so dear to us. Another thing I wanted to mention was plastic packaging, just to think about it. And I've been really mindful of how that is so prevalent now. Like you can't even go to the supermarket anymore and buy produce when the package, everything's in a package. You used to be able to buy celery or apples and things that had no plastic packaging. Now everything's in a plastic package, and it hurts me to buy that stuff, especially when there's no choice or it's extremely difficult to find a choice. But it's just about being more mindful. But so if we can, to buy produce, for example, outside of packages. I know for years and years and years, I've always used scrap paper. I love to write and make lists and things. And I'm such a nerd. They actually have a friend of mine who gives me, she has, paper from her office work and such, and she'll come home every few months. She'll give me the big stack of paper that was ready to throw out, and I just use the back of it. So I've been doing that, God, for decades. Bottles and all. Last night I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and she said, she once was on a flight from like Wisconsin, and she took this empty bottle that she had drunk from, like a little, water bottle or soda bottle. She took it home with her in her suitcase because she knew that the next recycling place that she could go to was going to be home. It wasn't going to be anywhere where she was. And I said, I don't think that. She goes, you probably think that's crazy. I'm like, no, dude, I'm like totally there with you. I do the same thing. I have driven home with things in the back of my car, like empty cans and bottles, just so I can throw them in the recycle bin. So it's just about being more conscious, waking up. And it can be this lunar eclipse is it's conjunct Algol. There's definitely some sudden and dramatic change that could be very difficult to process, or it may not happen in our lives, but we may be witnessing it. So we'll talk about that more in a couple of weeks. But the thing I wanted to mention, two more things this will be a short broadcast, that Venus is tomorrow morning, 6:43 a.m. on Friday. Venus will enter the sign of Capricorn, 0 degrees of Capricorn. So pay attention to the next few days with Venus at 0 degrees of Capricorn. Why is that important? Well, it's because Venus normally takes around about 4 weeks, just about 4 weeks to go into, to move through a sign. Well, in this case, it's going to be around for 3 months because Venus is going to retrograde next month. And so it'll drag out this whole process, this whole journey that's going through Capricorn. It's like, oh my goodness. So from November 5th to March 6th. So that's 3 months, right? December, January, February. Yeah, wait, December, January, February, March. No, 4 months. Goodness gracious, 4 months. And the thing about this is not only that it's in retrograde, but it's in retrograde in a sign that it's not comfortable in. Venus is not at home in the sign of Capricorn, right? So we look at all these things for clues. And what is it that we're being, what is it, where do we have to renegotiate and review the way in which we connect and relate with each other? This is really big. Venus is our not only our money and the money system and banks, but it's our what we value, what are our skills and resources and talents, you know, the conversation we have around self-esteem, perhaps in view of the larger of society at large. But Venus is in, Venus in Capricorn is definitely, you know, it's not like I said, it's not like she's in exile or fall, you know, but she's staying in Saturn's house. So that's hard. You know, we want to be cushy and comfortable where we're sitting on our butt on a cold concrete floor, it feels like, you know, so that's, it's not easy, but we make the most of it. And it's giving us an opportunity to, again, get out of our comfort zone and renegotiate on a really macro level. Capricorn is about government and society and people in power and CEOs and bosses. And so I think we could see another huge facet of like the Me Too movement, about women's rights, and also, you know, Black Lives Matter, and now the Ahmaud Arbery trial is starting. And I noticed in the jury selection they only have one Black juror on the whole. Like, how that happened, right? Nobody's going to let that go lightly. But there again, this is a very deep, fundamental reassessment of our values for all of society, and what's it going to take to create harmony, long lasting, right? Venus and Saturn sign is like, hey, we don't want to just feel fluffy and good and surface good for like a little bit of time. We want to fundamentally bring these changes into our society and like anchor them. Like, what kind of legacy do we want to leave in that regard? As it regards personal lives in our own families, yes, we could be looking at family roots, genealogy. You know, we might find out about maybe there was some marriage or love affair in our family history that we didn't know about, you know, or something. With the conjunction with Pluto in the retrograde, totally lots of secrets will be coming up with when it goes retrograde on December 19th. But that's a story for another time. We're just going to give you the overview of that Venus into Capricorn. This is a 3-month journey into the underworld. Well, the real underworld will start on November, what day is that again? November 17th. So next week, Venus will enter shadow retrograde. So that'll be at 3:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, November 17th. And so what that means is that Venus starts to slow down as it's starting to turn retrograde. It will like slow down, and then it will station retrograde, and then slowly do that U-turn, right? And then that whole journey is that whole alchemical process into itself. So even though it doesn't officially start retrograde until December 19th, the period from November 17th, so it's a month, where it's the beginning of this process. And we can feel it if we really tune in. We can, really literally feel that, as we become more mindful, these shifts. And then the things that we say are things that we think, and how we speak to each other and relate, and the quality of our relationships. So that's what's all coming up. This is a major, major thing, to have not only Venus. Venus will go retrograde only every 18 months. So the last time it was retrograde, it was in Gemini, and it was in the late spring, early summer, just when COVID had its first wave and we were starting to come back out again. That's when Venus went retrograde. So now we're completing another piece of this journey, and there you have it. So yeah, it doesn't happen much, but this time especially, it's not only retrograde, but that conjunction with Pluto at 26 degrees of Capricorn, that's a deep, dark dive, into the unknown, which brings me to my final point that I like to make is, this month with the new moon in Scorpio, leaping into the unknown, and then that, the opposition with Uranus can be a sudden leap, right? A sudden shift in food, in our relations, in our supply chains, in our food supplies, in our money system. These are collective, of course, but on a personal level, new moon can, just in terms of, I'm just hearing major wake-up call, right? Something out of the blue, but it's designed to liberate us. So it's not about, these planets aren't here to make us miserable. They're our friends. We are all, it's this divine cosmic dance. So, but often we are, especially in our society, we're afraid of the unknown, right? And so, children's stories, Hansel and Gretel in the deep dark forest, and they're petrified, so we have this cultural conditioning of being afraid of the dark. So leaping into the unknown is not comfortable, but it's something that we can just practice prefacing. And I would say too that I want to share, there was a dream I had years ago when I was in a really, really intense Pluto transit, which was hands down the most difficult period of my life that I've ever gone through. It's about 10 years ago. And my parents had, my mom had passed away. And I had this dream. I had several very deep dreams during that time period, because it was really signaling to me a major change was occurring in my life. The life that I had known was no longer. Thank you, Pluto. That's what it'll do, right? Takes it right out. But the dream was I was standing on the edge of this cliff, and it was, and it was like out west in like a desert environment with this high cliff. And I was coming down the cliff with, like rappelling, these people with their rappelling lines. Well, I went over this cliff, and I was going down fast with these rappelling. I mean, it was like really fast, and it was kind of scary. But in the dream, I was surrounded by 6 or 7 like very experienced like mountaineering kind of guys, the guys that like take you on these trips. And they were with me. So we were all going down together. So it's like saying, look, I'm going to go into this deep descent, but I have help. And even though it was a very fast, scary descent, which it really was in real life, perfect symbology in this dream, I was helped along the way. Finally, it was almost like my feet were, when you're running so fast down a hill, like your feet are out of control. It was like that, like I was just tumbling really fast with the ropes down to the bottom. And when I reached the bottom, it was a very, very almost vertical, steep cliff. And when I got to the bottom, it was just this vast desert wasteland. There was nothing lush or green. It was all just sand, scrub, kind of like southern Arizonan desert, scrub plants and such, and just dry. Not even water. It was just all sandy and dry. And that was the landscape that I was going to walk through. And there were no roads, there were no signs, there was nobody there. It was just this huge expanse of desert wasteland. And that's exactly how my life felt for many years until I moved out of that. But why am I mentioning all this? Because we might feel this kind of suddenness and change, and it can be scary, but just know that we always have help, even if it's not seen. Especially with Scorpio, that the help is in the invisible realms, and the invisible realms that are guides and such are directing people in this dimension that are assisting us. So it's just to be aware of that larger picture. Another dream I had was also at that time, which is again about feeling like you're out of control, but it was my dad was driving this car, and we were going into the tunnel at Grand Central Station. And there's 2 tunnels in Grand Central in Manhattan. One is uptown traffic and the other is downtown. Well, we were in the lane that was the downtown traffic lane, but we were driving uptown. So we were going against the current. And the tunnel was very narrow, and I couldn't open the door to get out because the tunnel wall was literally an inch from the door. So it was almost like claustrophobic. So I couldn't get out. There was nothing I could do. And the path was straight up, like a hill in San Francisco. So you couldn't see ahead of you. It was just, all you could see was that angular, ascent. And I couldn't leave. I just had to keep going. And we were going at a snail's pace. And it's like he was like pressing his foot to the pedal. And it was like a stick shift where you can barely get this thing to move forward. And that's what was, I just remember feeling, oh my God, am I going to make it? Because it just seemed so impossible. And then at the very end, the road kind of cricked off to the right and then to the left, and I could see, oh, okay, I can see outside 46th Street, Park Avenue, all these buildings and sunshine. So I was like, oh, it's right there, but you just have to be patient, and it'll be a slow go. And then just when you think it can't get any worse, there'll be this little crick, and then you'll be done. You'll be good. It's just gonna, take a while. So I'm not talking about longevity here with the new moon in Scorpio in this particular conversation, but I am talking about the fact that sometimes we're in these difficult places where we're feeling out of control. And again, just to keep going, I'm just offering you these words of wisdom. So keep going and don't allow any interference from the outside and to steal your peace, and just know that there's a process here, and it's not bad and wrong. Even if it is scary, there's something greater happening that we're not always aware of. And so just to leave you with that. Final note, November is always World Vegan Month, and being vegan, I'm very passionate about that. And so Helsinki leading the way with their meat-free city government directive. And anyway, just here's an example, as the lunar eclipse will only be, a week before Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving will take place in that very potent eclipse window. Can't think of a better time to consider vegan or going vegan, or even just incorporating more vegan food into our diet, and to not support the factory farming, which is so harmful to the animals. So you could go online and research and on all that, but that's another level of consciousness that I'm just inviting you to all to take on and dance with, just play with it, just notice and just being mindful of, wow, what does that mean when if you're eating meat and you're like, wow, how can I do that? I know for me, when I gave up eating meat years ago, the first thought I had was, oh my God, I'm going to be hungry. I'm not going to have enough to eat. I'm going to be scared that there's not enough variety for me. And nothing could be further from the truth. I have as much variety now as I ever did as a meat eater. That was a complete illusion, fear that I needed to move through. And what I discovered was, plenty of stuff, no boredom, plenty. And back then it was a lot harder. Now it's even easier. But even back then, I didn't find it difficult at all. So it's just something to think about, to consider, to try on, right? And as we leave the Gemini-Sag eclipse axis and head into Taurus Scorpio, it was about the evolution, the collective evolutionary impulse was to try on new ideas. And so that's my little invite to you. What would it be like if you had a Thanksgiving where there was no cruelty, like no animals were hurt in the making of this food? Plug for the best vegan butter, Miyoko's butter. Oh my God, totally outrageous. You'd swear it was real butter. I have to be very careful when I buy that because I would eat like the whole thing in like 2 days. But it's that good. So anyway, I hope that that'll hold us until next week. So with that, I bid you all adieu until the next time. And I hope you have a great, great, outrageous new moon. Leave your comments below, like and subscribe and share if you would. It's always great to hear from you. You can always reach me, Irlianna, at StarSoundAstrology.com. And let me know how you're doing with this new moon cycle. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you so very much. This is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, StarSound Astrology. Thank you all for listening. Namaste.